I think we'll make a start, shall we, Ken?
Yeah, okay. All right, so today's conversation is about peripheral skin temperature and peak performance. And so in short, we've been researching for the last 8 years the science of optimal decision making, that is the neurological and the biological effects and biomarkers of successful trading. That is, how does the biology of a human being and the neurology respond in good decision making as opposed to poor decision making whilst trading the financial markets. So in general, there's two systems that operate in us as humans when we're making a decision. One is the subconscious response of the human body, which is run by the nervous system. And so all this system does is, through our senses, it picks up data from our environment, whatever that environment is, and it communicates that to us. So the ambient temperature is cold, someone's yelling at us, someone's very soft and tender to us. All of these things go through our sensory modalities into our nervous system, and they communicate the environment that we're exposed to. That's one part of our decision-making system. The other part of our decision-making system is the brain, in specific the frontal lobe area, which gives us executive functioning, and it is prone to error. So we have the ability with our brains to override the data that's coming in from our sensory modalities. So we could be very fearful, therefore we're feeling cold, and our brain could turn around and say, oh, would someone turn the heat up? And everybody in the room is looking, saying, you know, it's not even cold, it's already warm. If you turn the heat up, everyone's going to be hot. No, turn the heat up, it's cold in this room, because the person's not recognizing that he's thinking about something which is causing him a fearful response, which is therefore creating what's called vasoconstriction, muscle tension, and the temperature in his body is starting to decrease. He's starting to shoot adrenaline, and the blood flow is starting to move away from his periphery and moving towards the trunk of his body. So that's the second part of our decision-making process. So when we look at those two systems that are at place, we have a very simple calculation in terms of the degree of success we're going to get in any goal or venture, say for instance, in attaining a profit target in a specific trade. So we have our little trader here, and he's in his present environment. And so that means that in his environment, his nervous system is pulling in all the data and telling him that he is in a certain environment. He has an idea or a goal in this environment. So let's, for day-to-day practical example would be, he's standing on the curb of a road and wants to walk across the road. So his nervous system, through the sensory modalities, is going to pick up the smell, the temperature, the wind. It's going to see the cars moving past. It's going to hear the cars moving past. And then the second part, his cognitive part, is going to be assessing all that data to see whether or not and when he should walk or run across the road to achieve his goal or objective. Now, whether our friend here is going to achieve his objective, right, over here, the degree of success, is determined by the amount of resistance that he creates inside his brain. So if he's very fearful, or say for instance, if he's drunk, he's going to have a lot more resistance in being able to conduct the task. If he's very fearful, he's going to have a lot more resistance, and that resistance is going to show up in his biology, and that's going to determine the degree of success he's going to have. The same, we can take this practical example and apply it into the markets. He's there looking at the markets, he sees an opportunity to go short, the amount of noise and cognitive chatter that he creates inside his brain and the amount of doubt that he creates here is going to determine the degree of success in that trade. So there's three parts of this simple calculation for attaining a goal. One is the present environment that a trader is experiencing, the amount of resistance that they're undergoing in order to achieve a profitable trade, and the congruency with the goal at the end. So what's very important to understand is that we can measure the present environment using wearable technology. We can measure the resistance that the person is going through also with wearable technology. And at the very end of that process, we can measure the body again to see the degree of congruency that the body had in terms of reaching a profitable trade. And it's very obvious to us that profitable trades and losing trades have absolutely total different biological symptoms. And this is a picture of obviously a losing trade and a winning trade. Now, well before a person raises their hands to cover their eyes in sadness and in anger and frustration, the body has already responded minutes before that, and even it can be up to 20 minutes before that. The body has actually responded and knows that it's already in a losing position. Much the same way, a winning position, the biology of this person knew well, way ahead of the moment that he put his arms in the air. And I'll show you specific examples why that is so, and how much earlier the body, in terms of the nervous system, actually registers its present environment. That is, it will register whether it's in a winning trade or a losing trade before we've even had a chance to cognitively register what is actually taking place. So I'm going to show a couple of examples of winning trades with the biology being monitored, and also losing trades where the biology is being monitored as well. So this is a winning trade done during the European session. So there's there's something that's very important about recognizing that it's a European session and that it's in the morning. That means that the trader has already rested all evening, has had a good breakfast, a good light breakfast, and is has peak potential to engage in the markets in an effective manner. And so with this winning trade, this is the biodata that we recorded. The trade lasted for about 30 minutes. This was the entry here, this white dotted line. This was the exit here on this white dotted line. The light blue line here is abdominal breathing. We measured the abdominal breathing. The red line underneath here is the heart rate in terms of what's called interbeat intervals. And the dark blue line here is the thoracic breathing. And that's correlated once again to the same heart rate measurement of interbeat interval. This next line here, the next graph here, is called the power spectrum, and it registers the electromagnetic pulse of the heart. And you will notice that that the heart spiked. There was a power spectrum spike at 4,000 just before the profit target was hit. In addition to that, the red line is peripheral temperature. We measure the body's temperature at the very periphery, at the very tip of the index finger, because that's where the capillaries and the blood is gets there last. So that means that the whole body will warm up before the fingertips get warm. And in reverse of that, as soon as a person starts to feel nervous or afraid, the first thing that happens is that the blood will rush out of his fingertips. So we know that he's having a stress response once his temperature starts to decrease. If we were to measure anywhere else on the body, it takes seconds and even sometimes minutes for the blood to draw away and for you to start to get a response. So the fastest temperature response is from the fingertip, and again, this demonstrates to us whether or not the person is in vasodilation or vasoconstriction. Is the person relaxed? Are the muscles relaxed? Is the blood flowing to all the extremities, which is increasing the temperature of the fingers? Skin conductance is a measure of perspiration. The more we perspire, the greater the conductivity of our skin, therefore the greater conductivity of the measurement that's shown here. So what happens in a successful trade is that we have relatively stable abdominal breathing here. So the person's very relaxed, they're breathing abdominally, the muscles are relaxed. We have relatively shallow thoracic breathing, which means again that the body is relaxed and there's no stress which is forcing the person to breathe from the chest. The power spectrum, being early in the morning, is ranging from 1,000 to 4,000. That might not mean something now, but it will when I show you other slides. Temperature increases to approximately 34 degrees Celsius, which is absolutely excellent for peripheral temperature. And you notice the slope, that it is a very nice, calm, gradual slope. Skin conductance is very low at about 0.1 and increases at excitement at the profit target just about being hit to 0.4. And again, I want to direct your attention to the relative calm even of the power spectrum. There are spikes in the power spectrum which correlate with changes in the heart rate, but it's relatively stable and it's at a very high rate, which shows that the person is actually well rested and ready for the trading session. So if we magnify 1 5-minute area of that 30-minute trade, we'll notice that the heart rate and the abdominal breathing is very synchronous. That means that it's very coherent. There is a breath in and an exhale with the interbeat interval of the heart, which shows great congruency and coherence. Much the same way, thoracic breathing is also coherent with the heart rate, which shows you that the entire abdominal wall and the chest is actually beating as one uniform unit. The heart and the lungs, the diaphragm are all in sync. Very, very relaxed. And as I said, the power spectrum is at its very lowest at 500, but on average, it's always at approximately 1,000. Temperature has a very, very nice, straight, gradual increase, which means just greater vasodilation. During the course of the trade, the trader is very, very relaxed. Everything's going his way, no reason to fret. And so that's a winning trade during the European session early in the morning. This is a winning trade during the US session, so later in the afternoon. So this is, say some 5 hours into the trading day. Again, a winning short position in the euro. And we will notice that, again, the abdominal breathing is relatively uniform. We have one, as is thoracic breathing. We did have a moment here of where the trader actually had to gasp for air. This coincided with a small increase in price here, where the trader actually got nervous for a minute. And what's important is that the power spectrum, you'll notice, is the range is between 500 and 1,000, where in the morning session the range was from 2,000 to 4,000. So what it actually tells us is that during the course of 6 hours worth of trading, this trader is actually starting to fatigue. And so that shows itself in some of these breath spikes. It'll show some of this, the decreasing amplitude of the abdominal breathing here. There's increasing amplitude in terms of the thoracic breathing, which means that he's actually getting tired and he's needing to start to breathe, use more of his chest to breathe as opposed to abdominal breathing. But once again, with a successful trade, his temperature is very, very calm, very relaxed. It dips a little bit here when there was another moment of, let's just go back what that moment was. That's these 5 minutes here. So when the market started to move a little bit against him in terms of, it was still in profit, but he was in anticipation of hitting his profit target. But because it retraced a few pips, from him, there was, his heart responded. There was a slight decrease in temperature. His perspiration increased a little bit. His perspiration then leveled off again, started to decrease when price started to go in his favor again. And then we had the excitement by excessive or an increase in perspiration when his profit target was hit. So this is a winning trade in the afternoon. Again, things to notice are the very, very calm peripheral temperature, which a trader, when he's in a peak state, when he's in a good position, is a key biomarker that shows us that all is well and that the trader and the market or his position are in a state of equilibrium. He's very harmonious with the trade. He feels good, and that correlates with excellent temperature. The temperature hit like 35 degrees Celsius peripheral temperature, and an Olympic coach I worked with in 2015 said to me, goes, that's literally when the trader is red hot. This guy is at his ultimate at this point in time. So someone like this at this point in time is hitting peak alpha in terms of brainwaves. The next, so this is now a 5-minute snapshot. You'll notice again that there's coherence between his abdominal breath rate, the light blue line, and his heart rate, very synchronous. In addition to that, the same applies with his thoracic breathing and the heart rate. There is now here, you can see that there is a little bit of incoherence between the heart rate and the breath rate. And again, that's because it's in the afternoon and the trader is a little bit tired from being up and about for the last 6, 7, 8 hours. Again, that's demonstrated in the power spectrum where he's hardly achieving 500 on the scale, and in the morning he was doing between 2,000 and 4,000. Temperature, again, even on a 5-minute chart, the temperature is very, very stable. It's decreasing, but it's stable. And this is that increase in skin conductance where the profit target was hit. Now, we'll have a look at a losing trade during the European session. So that's early in the morning when the trade is well rested. So what we can notice in a losing trade is that so this is where he took the position. Even before taking the position, you can see that there is inconsistency with his abdominal breathing. So something happened during the course of the day. He woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and we automatically know from this that there's a high possibility that this trader is not in a peak optimal state in order to trade. His power spectrum, so he's already had a heart spike here before he's even placed the trade. His power spectrum at the beginning of the trade, once entering the trade, has gone down to about 150, and this is in the morning, where in a winning trade, it was at 2,000. Now he's gone down to 150 in placing the trade. So his heart has responded immediately to the environment. And again, we'll go back to that very early slide where we had our little trader and he's absorbing the present environment through his nervous system, through his peripheral through his perceptual sensory modalities. So the nervous system is perceiving all of the data from the markets, and as instantaneously the heart has responded and has just plummeted on entering the trade. And you can notice now the extreme volatility in the power spectrum of the heart. So the heartbeat itself is very regular, and you can notice that by the amount of heart spikes that we have incurred during the course of the trade. So there's 1, 2, 3, 3, and look at the amount of thoracic breathing, the amount of times that the trader actually had to breathe in with his chest, because he was so uncomfortable and so uptight about his position that he couldn't breathe abdominally anymore. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's just consistently breathing through his chest, gasping for air from the pressure and tension that being on the wrong side of the market has caused him to feel. And again, you can notice the extreme difference in the shape of and the movement of his temperature during the course of that trade. So even though this trader is in excellent physical condition, which shows by the fact that he's still been able to maintain vasodilation and has been able to achieve peripheral temperature of 34 degrees, it's not the indicator that he's in a bad trade is the volatility of his ink. So even though he can remain calm during a losing trade and he can maintain vasodilation, but the things that he cannot control biologically, the adrenaline, the muscle tension, is corresponding with these changes in his temperature. He can't, it's like swimming against the current. You can tread water for as long as you want, but you're going to drink some water regardless. And again, with the skin conductance, there's just extreme volatility with a losing position. So it's very, the biomarkers for a losing trade are very different to those of a winning trade in the morning session when the trade is rested. So again, we look at a 5-minute snapshot, and you can see the amount of irregular heartbeats. There is irregular breathing here. He's actually even like missed a breath from tension. Again, the volatility in the skin conductance and in temperature, and power spectrum going all the way down to about 200 there. So that's a losing trade during the European session. This is a losing trade during the US session. So what we can expect is, just because it's the US session, it's in the afternoon, we can expect that the power spectrum will be lower, plus it will be additionally affected by the fact that it's a losing trade. So what we have here is excessive losses in abdominal breathing, because what we have now is we have a body that is tired because it's already been up for 6, 7, 8 hours, plus it's endured additional stress. So you have complete collapses of abdominal breathing, which we didn't have in the morning losing trade. We have excessive thoracic gasps there, and the power spectrum is under 250. If is it 250 or is it is that 1,000? Yeah, it is. So that's 500. So the power spectrum, as you can see, on this losing trade in the afternoon, started off at about 200. Most probably went down there to about 40. So fatigue and a losing position, the fact that he's in a losing position, is very, very obvious. Skin conductance in the winning trades was in the morning was under 0.2, in the afternoons is under 0.6, between 0.4 and 0.6 for a winning trade. On the losing trade in the afternoon, he's already hitting 2 and he's maxing out at 4. So the excessive amount of perspiration because the body is trying to push as hard as it can for stamina reasons, plus it's in a bad trade, so the body is responding with excessive symptoms of stress. So that's that volatility, and temperature is just consistently volatile and is actually even decreasing during the course of the trade. An interesting thing to notice is the heart spike here and the power spectrum spike actually, and a decrease in temperature actually corresponds with the stop loss being hit. So what that actually tells us is that even though it's a very stressful event for your stop loss to be hit, it actually alleviates tension. As you can see, that the abdominal breathing actually starts to become more normal as opposed to when he was in a bad trade. So there is a sense of relief that also comes with being stopped out. It's an awful feeling, and the heart goes crazy in terms of the shock of loss. But right after the shock, the body relaxes because it's outside of the danger zone now and it's safe. So if we look at a 5-minute snapshot, what you notice is excessive, irregular interbeat intervals. We actually don't even have, we almost have a flat line of the heartbeat at this point in time, as opposed to having the consistent, nice wave-like motion. We actually have the whole heartbeat just go flat, and we have these heart downward spike palpitations, heart palpitations. We have total incoherence between thoracic breathing and the heart rate. So he's breathing in as the heart interbeat interval is actually decreasing. So total incoherence there, total incoherence all the way across here. And that's because of two things. It's because of the stamina, decrease in stamina, and the stressful environment of a losing trade. So, and again, 5-minute snapshot of the power spectrum, it's peaking at 200 and it hit a low of about 45 there. High volatility in skin conductance and just a decreasing, flat to decreasing temperature. So that's a losing trade in the afternoon. This is an interesting one. This is a winning trade in the European session when the trader had the onset of a fever. So interesting in sense of biodata that with the onset of the fever, we have a much lower power spectrum. The power spectrum is peaking at 500 because the body is actually carrying a greater load now with the onset of the fever. But regardless of that, because it's a winning trade, you actually have an excellent flat high temperature of about 34, 35 degrees Celsius. Again, you get, even though the power spectrum is lower because of the onset of a fever, you still have a relatively stable, and you don't have too much volatility in terms of the power spectrum. Skin conductance is very low at 0.5. It peaks here at the profit target being hit, which is also correlated with the heart spiking here, and there's actually a gasp of air through the chest at the profit target being hit. But again, even with a fever, there's certain symptoms of a good trade, which are that the abdominal breathing, the amplitude of abdominal breathing will be relatively stable. There'll be very little changes in amplitude in thoracic breathing. The amplitude, so the distance between the inhale and the exhale of the abdominal breathing, will be much greater than what it is in thoracic breathing, because the person is relaxed and they don't need to breathe through the chest. They will naturally, when a person is relaxed, they will naturally breathe through the abdominal wall, through the diaphragm. And you know, you have this excitement and an increasing excitement towards the profit target being hit, and a climax at the profit target being hit with the increase in perspiration. So again, the 5-minute snapshot, perfect straight lines with skin conductance and with temperature. Skin conductance is at 0.15, exceptionally low for someone even with a fever. And you have nice, see how the heart rate is just still consistent. The breath rate is excellent and consistent. There's coherence. There is a little bit of incoherence here where he's breathing in and the heartbeat is actually decreasing. So there's a little bit of that going on. But again, with the fever and all that, it's an interesting thing where we can see certain patterns which are always prevalent in winning trades and losing trades, and what fatigue, whether the fatigue is induced through a health reason or it's due to being trading for a long period of time. So if you're trading after your day job, you would need to also be very careful as to how refreshed are you in order to be making critical decisions at that point in time. So again, fatigue is something that if we want to be at our optimum, we need to be aware of how much stamina do we have, how much clarity of mind do we have, how well rested are we in order to perform at our best. So these are some of the things that the biodata can tell us. And so in terms of peripheral temperature, good trades, a person has vasodilation, they feel warm, their hands feel warm but not sweaty. If your fingertips are cold when you're in a trade, you're most probably in a losing trade or it will go sour. If you're planning a trade and you have cold fingers, it's maybe best not to take that trade. You should be calm, relaxed when you're planning a trade, which means that you're doing the right, your body's telling you that you're doing the right thing. When you take the trade, your body should feel relaxed. It's like sitting down and having something nice to eat. You're going to feel relaxed eating it, as opposed to eating something that you don't like, that someone's forced you to eat, or you really have to eat because you want to be polite. They're two different biological responses. When you're relaxed in good company, eating something that you like, you're going to have warm fingers, you're going to have relaxed muscles, you're not going to be thinking too much, your conversations are going to be lighter, even in your head. You're going to have lighter conversations with yourself. And this reflects itself in peripheral temperature. If you're under stress and you're eating, you're most probably going to be saying to yourself, quickly, Barry, hurry up, finish this off, you got to go and do whatever you're going to do. The same in your trading. If you're talking too much, if you're indecisive, if there's a lot of chatter going on, then and you start to feel these other physical symptoms, that is that you may be edgy, you're nervous, you're standing up, you're sitting down, you're twitching this, you're moving the mouse, you're doing that. And so, for instance, your fingers are cold or your toes are cold. Any of your extremities, it means that you're actually going to vasoconstriction. The body is getting ready for a fight-flight response. So it's already, your body has registered that it's in a danger zone of some sort, or it's in caution. It's in cautionary mode. I don't like the feel of this trade. And if the trade gets a little bit worse, it starts to contract even more and contract even more. Then the heart starts to race. Then the heart starts to miss a beat because there's adrenaline shooting in, which is pushing the body to literally run away. That's why you get fidgety. That's why your temperature decreases. And that's why the brain starts to talk a lot, because we have to do something. We're under threat. We're under threat. We're under threat. So these are the types of things to be mindful of when you're trading, so you can discern when you're in a winning position and when you're in a losing position. And if you feel all these things happening, make a note of them and see how the trade pans out, and turn around and say, oh, wow, I was really, really nervous. These are the sorts of things that I registered happening, and this was the result. And you do that with a winning trade and a losing trade, and after a month, you'll be able to really have a good self-awareness of biologically what's happening with you with a losing trade and a winning trade, and thereby you'll be able to feel the losing trade happening and say, I know that I'm not in the zone now. I better not risk any money on this trade. I'll come back when I am feeling like I was last Wednesday, when A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and I felt warm and I was calm and I was relaxed and everything was cool. So that's a little bit of what I wanted to share with you in terms of peripheral temperature and some of the biology of a winning and a losing trade.